అడుగుదాంలేండి ఎవరికైనా కావాలంటే. స్క్రీన్ కనపడుతుంది కదా. మనం దీన్ని అన్ని ఐపీసెక్ ఫీచర్స్ గురించి మాట్లాడుకున్నాం. అండ్ టైప్స్ ఆఫ్ VPNs, IPsec phases, phase 1 and phase 2, and IPsec modes, transport mode and tunnel mode, phase 1 negotiation, DH key exchange and authentication, and phase 1 modes, main mode and aggressive mode. These are the main mode messages. Main mode message, we have 6 messages in main mode, and this is aggressive mode where we have 3 messages. We have, after the phase 1 we have phase 2, and these are the parameters that are exchanged in the phase 2, and these are the 3 messages: message 1, message 2 and message 3. Till phase 2 we have completed. Okay, after building up phase 1 and phase 2, the IPsec will exchange the data using the protocols. Okay, using the protocols, the AH and ESP. Most probably AH means authentication header protocol, and ESP is an encryption security payload. These are the two protocols that actually the user data is transferred between the IPsec beats. Okay, what is AH header? AH header means it will, can, if you take the, if you see the diagram, this is a one side and this is the other side, where between these sides we can configure an IPsec. Okay, phase 1 and phase 2. After phase 1 and phase 2, the actual data will be flown through the phase these tunnel, IPsec tunnel, using this IPsec protocols, where AH is an authentication header. Authentication header. What is authentication header? Authentication header means whenever the data is flowing through the IPsec tunnel, it will provide only the authentication and integrity. Okay, authentication and integrity will be provided for that the user data that is flowing through the IPsec tunnel. And this is the protocol which is less used in the real time scenario. Okay, between the site to site, if you are using H protocol, authentication header protocol, it will provide only authentication and integrity. Okay, but when we use ESP means encryption security payload, where it will provide, in the name itself we have an encryption, right? So it will provide encryption along with authentication and integrity. Okay, so this is a mostly used protocol in the IPsec between site to site. Okay, we are calling it as an protocol slide, so it will have its own protocol numbers. AH header have the protocol number 51, and ESP has a protocol number 50. Okay, it will use a protocol number 50, and authentication header will use a protocol number 51. Okay, Basically the authentication header will provide an authentication and integrity only, and apart from that it won't provide anything for that user data. But in the ESP it will provide encryption along with authentication and integrity. Okay, and these are the two protocols that can be used in the IPsec. If we go through the PPT, these are the authentication and protocol, and see in the authenticate we have discussed about the tunnel mode and transport mode, right? So in authentication header and ESP, in both protocol we can use the transport mode and tunnel mode. How the packet looks like when transport mode is used in the authentication protocol. Okay, see actually the original packet will look like this. Okay, we have L1 protocol, layer 1 header, L2 header, L3 header, L4 header, and actual data. Okay, this is the actual original packet with the transport mode, and we use it will only encrypt the sorry it will add the authentication header after the IP header. Okay, it will be the whole packet will be authenticated, but header will be included between IP header and the TCP header when we are using transport mode in the okay, protocol. But in the tunnel mode, what tunnel mode we మనం ఏం నేర్చుకున్నాం టన్నల్ మోడ్ అంటే నిన్న టన్నల్ మోడ్ అనేది ఏం చేస్తుందంటే it will encapsulate the original IP header with the by adding new IP header. See here, this is actual original packet. This is the tunnel mode where it will encapsulating the header and IPsec with the new IP header. Okay, so in the tunnel mode we will have then extra layer where it will add a new IP header, and this new IP header will be encapsulating this header and IP header inside the tunnel. Okay, and this whole packet will be authenticated at once. We have in the authentication header this whole packet will be authenticated. Okay, and in the ESP, this is ESP is mostly used protocol between the site to site, because it will encrypt the traffic along with the authentication and integrity. Okay, how the ESP protocol will look like when you use transport mode. Okay, in the transport mode this is actual original IP header, and the ESP will add an ESP header and trailer and authentication. Okay, this actual TCP header will be encrypting here, and after that the whole the ESP header and trailer will be authenticated using ESP authenticator. Okay, and if you see with the tunnel mode, this is where new IP header will be added to the existing existing tunnel mode. Okay, existing packet where we are seeing this IP header will be outside the ESP header, right? So here it will come, the IP header will be inside the ESP header and the ESP trailer, and a new IP header will be added in the tunnel mode. For every for every protocol for every protocol here, it in the tunnel mode a new IP header will be added as an extra layer of security in the tunnel mode. So most probably the tunnel mode will be used in the IPsec as well as ESP will be used. Okay, why we use tunnel mode in the IPsec? Because it will add an extra new IP header which will encapsulate the original IP header. Okay, sorry. Why we are using why we use ESP in the IPsec? Because it will allow the it will encrypt the IP traffic along with the authentication and integrity. These are the basic difference and between the and ESP as well as transport mode and tunnel mode. Okay, and this is all about the protocols and the tunnel modes which we are including in the and ESP. Okay, any doubts? Okay, if you're fine, we can go ahead and we can do a lab. Okay, actually we can, if మనం ల్యాబ్ చేసేటప్పుడు ఎప్పుడైనా సరే ఒక టోపాలజీ గీసుకుంటే we can easily understand. Okay, I think this is firewall 1 and this is firewall 2. This is an connection between firewall and firewall 2. Let us take this as an firewall 1, firewall 2. You can use this as Ethernet 1/2, and the same thing you can use this Ethernet 1/2. Okay, and let us take considered it is in the నేను ఇక్కడ ఏం చేస్తానంటే డైరెక్ట్గా కనెక్ట్ చేస్తున్నా ఈ ఫైర్వాల్కి డైరెక్ట్ కనెక్ట్ చేస్తున్నా, బట్ ఇన్ ద రియల్ టైమ్ సినారియో దెర్ విల్ బీ మనకి మల్టిపుల్ డివైజెస్ కానీ ఒకవేళ ఒక సింగిల్ డివైజ్ అని ఉండొచ్చు, మల్టిపుల్ డివైజెస్ అని ఉండొచ్చు. ఓకే, బట్ వీఆర్ ఫర్ దిస్ టాపిక్ ఐఎమ్ కన్సిడరింగ్ దిస్ ఈజ్ అండ్ డైరెక్ట్లీ కనెక్టెడ్. ఓకే, సో ఐఎమ్ టేకింగ్ ద 10.10.10.0/24 network. Okay, and on top of that we need, this is how the topology look like. Okay, and if we go through this, and this is our firewall 1. Okay, this is a firewall 1 which we consider as an this firewall 1. Okay, and this is also the firewall 2. Let us consider as an firewall 2. Okay, if we want we can rename this. We can use the host names. Okay, if you want configure the names as you like. Okay, we can configure the names as well using the host names. Here we have an device setup. In the management we have a general settings. In the general settings, here you can configure and just like firewall 1. Okay, let us consider this is a firewall 1 and this is firewall 2. మనకి ఏదైనా పేర్లు రాసుకోవచ్చు, మనకి ఇష్టం వచ్చిన పేరు రాసుకోవచ్చు. మనకు కావాలనుకుంటే ఇక్కడ ఇండియా లేదంటే యూఎస్, మనకి ఎట్లయినా కాన్ఫిగర్ నేమ్స్ ఏమైనా ఇచ్చుకోవచ్చు, మనకి ఇష్టం వచ్చిన నేమ్స్ ఇచ్చుకోవచ్చు. బట్ ఫర్ అవర్ అండర్స్టాండింగ్ ఐఎమ్ కన్సిడరింగ్ firewall and firewall 2. Okay, బిఫోర్ గోయింగ్ టు దట్, ఇఫ్ మనం ఏదైనా కొత్తగా చేసినప్పుడు ఫైర్వాల్ మనకి ఫస్ట్ ఈ టోపాలజీ డయాగ్రామ్ బట్టి మనం ప్రొసీడ్ అవుతే, అంటే ఏ ల్యాబ్ చేసినా కూడా టోపాలజీ డయాగ్రామ్ ఉందంటే మనకి ఈజీగా అర్థమవుతుంది. ఎందుకంటే వీ కెన్ హ్యావ్ మచ్ క్లియర్ అబౌట్ వెన్ వీఆర్ డ్రాయింగ్ ద టోపాలజీ డయాగ్రామ్. ఓకే, సో between firewall and firewall 1 and firewall 2 we have connected with the Ethernet 1/2. Okay, so we need to bring this Ethernet 1/2 up on both the devices. Okay, on the first note I need to bring up these Ethernets on both the firewalls. యాక్చువల్గా నేను ఆల్రెడీ సెటప్ చేసి పెట్టాను. సో వీఆర్ యూజింగ్ Ethernet 1/2, right? So we need to bring up the Ethernet 1/2. So we have an Ethernet 1/2 and you need to configure Ethernet 1/2 as an layer 3, and we need to configure virtual router and security zone that it has. So I'm considering these interfaces, these both interfaces will be in the untrust zone. Okay, we can consume as an whether is an untrust or outside or internet, whatever we want we can name it. Yeah, that's correct. So I'm considering these interfaces will be in the untrust zone. So we have to make sure configure the security zone as untrust. And on this interface, I'm considering as we are using 10 dot network, right? So on the firewall one interface, I'm considering 10.10 as an IP, and in the IPsec, you no need to do anything, and SD-WAN as well. In the advanced tab, you need to allow the ping on the management profile, okay? Because if you are trying to reach the other site, this ping must be allowed, because if you are not allowing the ping, and if you are trying to ping from this firewall 1 to firewall 2 interface, we can't get an ping response, okay? So we need to allow the ping, and in the management profile I have configured and allow the services ping, okay? This is the on the same in this firewall also I brought up the Ethernet 1/2 and configured as an layer 3, and need to configure this as an virtual router, okay? So this is a virtual router. By default, I am using only the default, okay? If you want, we can create one virtual router here. Here, this is a virtual router. If you want, we can create a virtual router. Like we can name it as an IPsec, and include the interfaces, whatever the interfaces you want. For now, we are using Ethernet 1/2, right? We need to include that 1/2 in this virtual router, okay? So by default I am using the default one only. For now I am using the default one, so I made it as an virtual router as an default. No, by default whatever the interfaces that we have, it will show the virtual routes. If you go here, whatever the directly connected networks will be there, right? మనకి ఏవైతే డైరెక్ట్లీ కనెక్టెడ్ ఉంటే అవన్నీ చూపిస్తాయి ఇక్కడ మనకి అంతే. సో ఇది డైరెక్ట్లీ కనెక్టెడ్ మనకి, ఎందుకంటే 10.10.10 నెట్వర్క్ అనేది మనకి డైరెక్ట్లీ కనెక్టెడ్, ఓకే? ఇది చూపిస్తుంది అనమాట అంతే. If you want to allow, we need to create configure the static routes. If you want to create static routes, మనం ఏదైనా స్టాటిక్ route క్రియేట్ చేయాలనుకుంటే ఈ వర్చువల్ రౌటర్లో చేసుకోవాలి. All the routing configurations will be done in the virtual router, okay? So in the same way, I brought up Ethernet 1/2 in the firewall 2 as well, and I configured as an 10.20 10.10.10.20/24, and in the same way I have allowed the ping in the on this interface, okay? This is how we need to bring up the Ethernet between both the sites, okay? And what next, what is the next thing we need to do is we need to configure, and we brought up the interfaces, okay, and configure it as an untrust. The next thing is we need to configure the IPsec, okay? In the IPsec, what we need to do is we have two phases, right? We need to configure the two phases here. Phase 1, do you know what are the parameters we need to configure here? In the yesterday class we have discussed about, right? I have also yeah, haggle parameters. So H means hashing, A means authentication, G means group, L means lifetime, and E means encryption, okay? So these parameters will be configured on the both sides as well, and in the same way we need to configure a phase 2 parameters as well, which are haggle parameters, okay? Mm. So these are the parameters that we need to configure on both the devices for bringing up phase 1 and phase 2 on both the devices, okay? So in the Palo Alto, in the network tab, we have an IK crypto where we can configure an phase 1 parameters, okay? So if you want, we can use the default one ways. These yeah. These three are the what we call, these three are the default one. I have created an IK crypto one where we need to configure all the parameters here. See here we have a group. This is an authentication, authentication means this is not actual authentication. Okay, we can call it as an hashing algorithm. Okay, actual authentication will be configured in the IKE gateway. Okay, I will show you there. In the authentication, we can use an pre-shared key, and we discuss about pre-shared key and digital certificate, right? In the authentication, this is by seeing this. This is authentication. This is not actual authentication. This is an hashing parameters. Okay. If you see here in the DH group, we have multiple. Okay. We have group 1, group 2, group 5, group 14, group 19, group 20. So based upon the group number, the more higher the value, and that is the more sent to the key. Okay. So by default, I have taken the 14, and this is actually I created now. By default, I have taken the 14 group number, and authentication we have an multiple hashing algorithms, where we have MD5, SHA-1, SHA-256, SHA-384, SHA-512. Okay, by default I have taken the SHA-512. Okay, and this is an hashing algorithm, and this is an encryption. Okay, this encryption we have multiple AES, 3DS, DES. Okay, DES, 3DS, and AES 128 CBC, and 192, 256, 128, 250 GCM. These are all the encryption algorithms, but I have configured the AES 256 here, and this is the key lifetime. Key lifetime means we are discuss about lifetime, right? We have maximum of seconds, minutes, hours, and days. Maximum we can configure. We have an by default it will be an 1 day, but we can configure 365 days as well. But on the Palo Alto, by default it will show an 8 hours only. Okay, on it the lifetime will be depends upon the firewall vendor. Okay, this lifetime will be by default lifetime will be changed based upon the firewalls. Okay, and this is a lifetime that we can configure. These are the things that we need to configure on the phase 1. We can call it IKE crypto profile will be configured as an phase 1 parameters. Okay, and next on the top of that we have an IPsec crypto. These are the phase 2 parameters. I have configured IPsec crypto and using name IPsec crypto. So the first thing we need to do is protocol. We need to select the protocols ESP and AH. But by default, if you see here, by default it will take an ESP only. See here, by default it is taking ESP. If you want, we can use AH also. Okay, and we have configured protocol. This is an encryption, same like phase 1. We are using whatever the parameters we are using on the phase 1. No need to use the same parameters, but whatever the phase 1 parameters configured here on the firewall, we need to use the same parameters on the phase 1. Okay, firewall to firewall we need to match, but in the same firewall we need to no need to use same parameters on the phase 1 and phase 2. Okay, if you want to use another apart from this 256, if you want to use another thing, you can also use. If you want to 128, you can use 128 as well. Okay, and this is authentication, where we are using SHA-256, and this is a DH group. This is also have same group 1, group 2, group 5, group 14, group 19, group 20, same like the phase 1 as well. And this is a lifetime. By default we have an 1 hour of lifetime for this phase 2. Okay, and we can IPsec crypto, we can call it as an phase 2 parameters. Okay, so we have configured in phase 1 parameters and phase 2 parameters. We just configured, and we need to call them in the IKE gateway. IKE gateway means we need to, this is the phase 1 tunnel. If you need to bring up the phase 1 tunnel, this is a IKE gateway will be the key for the phase 1. Okay, for the name for our understanding, నేను ఏం చేశా అంటే phase 1 లాగా IKE phase 1 లాగా నేను నేమ్ ఇచ్చేసా. to understand, this is an phase 1, okay. And in this we have multiple parameters that we need to have. Here we have an IKE v1 only mode, IKE v2 only mode, and IKE v2 preferred. Most probably we are using IKE v1 only mode, but in some cases version 2 will be used, and the version 2 will have there are some difference between v1 and v2. V1 will be some slow process, and v2 is an it will be an faster than v1, but it will consume more bandwidth on v2, okay, than v1. So most probably we can use IK v1 mode only mode, okay, on both sides. So here for connecting between IPsec site firewall and firewall 2, we are using the Ethernet 1/2, right? So we need to call the Ethernet 1/2 here, okay. And whatever the IP we have configured, it will take here. Whatever the IP we have configured on the Ethernet 1/2, it can show here. You can select that. And peer IP address. Peer IP address will be in IP or FQDN or dynamic. Dynamic means maybe it will come with the DSCP, or mostly it will be a DSCP, okay. And we can use an FQDNs as well instead of the IP. We can use FQDN. That FQDN will resolve some IP addresses, right? So we can also use an FQDNs. And IP, we know we have an IPv4 what we have configured, so we can configure an peer IP address. What is the peer IP address here? This is a firewall 2. Firewall 2 local IP is 10.20, and peer IP address, what is the peer IP address we have configured here on the firewall 1? It is a 10.10, okay. So we need to configure an peer IP 10.10.10.10, okay. And this is actual authentication, okay. Authentication will be in two types. One is an pre-shared key, and another is an certificate, okay. And we need to configure a pre-shared key here as well. So we need to configure pre-shared key, and I am configuring pre-shared key as 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9. If you want, you can also type with letters, or you can use how you configure password. మనం ఎట్లయితే పాస్వర్డ్ క్రియేట్ చేసుకుంటామో ప్రీషేడ్ కి కూడా అట్లే కాన్ఫిగర్ చేసుకోవచ్చు, ఓకే. నేనేం చేస్తాను అంటే ఒక జస్ట్ న్యూమరికల్ వాల్యూస్ తీసుకుంటాం, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9, okay. And we can also configure local identification. If you want to use local identification and peer identification, we can configure. Local identification means local IP address, that's it. If we are using FQDN, we can use FQDN host name here. If you want to use IP address, we can use IP address. Key ID and user FQDN we are not using here. If you want, we can use, but for now I am not using the identifications, okay. And in the advanced options, enable passive mode and enable NAT transversal, okay. We can discuss NAT transversal later, but enable passive mode, when we use enable passive mode means whenever the peer IP address will be dynamic, okay. If we are using dynamic IP address, see we have మనం ఇక్కడ ఏం చేసామంటే స్టాటిక్గా కాన్ఫిగర్ చేసాం, ఓకే. ఇక్కడ స్టాటిక్గా కాన్ఫిగర్ చేసినప్పుడు మనం ఈ ఐపీ అడ్రస్ తీసుకున్నాం. ఒకవేళ పీర్ ఐపీ అడ్రస్ డైనమిక్ అయింది అనుకో, ఏం చేయాలంటే మనం ఇక్కడ ప్యాసివ్ మోడ్ ఎనేబుల్ చేసుకోవాలా. ఎందుకంటే ఇక్కడ మనకి డైనమిక్ అన్నప్పుడు మనకు తెలియదు అటుపక్క ఏ ఐపీ అడ్రస్ ఉందో, ఓకే. మనం స్టాటిక్గా కాన్ఫిగర్ చేసినప్పుడు తెలుసు మనకి. డైనమిక్ అన్నప్పుడు మేబీ ఇట్ మే చేంజెస్ సమ్ టైమ్స్, ఓకే. ఇఫ్ సంథింగ్ హెస్ చేంజ్ ద ఐపీ అడ్రస్ విల్ ఆల్సో చేంజెస్, ఓకే. సో ఇఫ్ యూ ఆర్ కాన్ఫిగరింగ్ peer IP address dynamic, we can configure this as a passive mode, because when we enable the passive mode, what it will do is this firewall will always be become the responder, okay. Yesterday we have discussed about sender and responder, right? Sender means who are initiating the traffic, who are initiating the traffic to bring up the tunnels, okay. And responder is it will just respond whatever the information shared from the sender, okay. So if you enable the passive mode, this firewall will always be a responder. It won't initiate the traffic for IPsec tunnel, okay. So when we use in passive mode means when the peer IP address will be a dynamic, we can use this we can use this firewall as an passive mode, so that this firewall will act as a responder. Okay, so here I am using the static IP, so I am not enabling the passive mode. So maybe sometimes it may be become initiator as well. If you are initiating the traffic from this end, it will become initiator. Otherwise, if you are initiating the traffic from this firewall, it will become a initiator. Okay, and exchange modes. We have discussed about the phase one modes, right? What are the phase one modes? Main mode and aggressive mode, right? So it will we can configure if you want. If you can't configure main mode, or if you want configure aggressive mode, we can configure. By default, I'm configuring auto, because maybe by default it will take an main mode only if you configure auto. Okay, and we need to call, this is a phase one, right? This is a phase one tunnel, so we need to call that phase one parameters, whatever the parameters that we have configured here, we need to call. If you drop down this, it will get of all the phase one parameters we have configured here. So I configured IK crypto for this, so I am selecting IK crypto. Okay, dead period detection means here dead period detection means if the firewall uh, what it will do is, see here, after initiating the after initiating the IPsec tunnel, and the IPsec tunnel is up, IPsec tunnel uplo undi manaki. For suppose for at certain point of time this firewall to become dead. Okay, ఇది dead అయింది. సో సర్టన్ ఇంటర్వెల్ టైంకి మనకి కీ పెలవ్ సెండ్ చేస్తుంది. ఆ కీ పెలవ్స్ అనేది ఈ డెడ్ పీ డిటెక్షన్ ఇంటర్వెల్ని తెలుస్తుంది అనమాట. ఇక్కడ ఏం చేస్తుంది అంటే డెడ్ పీరియడ్ ఇంటర్వెల్ అంటే interval files retry 5 times. It is a 5 seconds. Okay, for every 5 seconds it will send and keep alive, and it will send 5 times. Okay, means it will send and it will wait for the 5 into 5 25 seconds. Okay, అర్థమైందా? ఎప్పుడైతే మనకి ఈ ఫైర్ వాల్ అనేది డెడ్ అయిందంటే 5 సెకండ్స్కి ఒకసారి కీపెలో పంపిస్తూ ఉంటుంది అనమాట. ఇక్కడ నుంచి 5 సెకండ్స్కి ఒకసారి ఒక కీపెలో పంపిస్తుంది. ఇది ఫస్ట్ ట్రై. సెకండ్ నెక్స్ట్ 5 సెకండ్స్కి మళ్ళీ ఇంకొక రీట్రై పంపిస్తుంది. ఓకే, థర్డ్ టైంకి మళ్ళీ ఇంకొకసారి, ఫోర్త్ టైంకి ఇంకోసారి, ఫిఫ్త్ టైం ఇంకా ఫోర్త్ టైం కూడా రెస్పాండ్ అవ్వకుంటే మళ్ళీ నెక్స్ట్ 5 సెకండ్స్లో ఫిఫ్త్ టైం కూడా మనకి కీపేలో పంపిస్తుంది. ఈ 5 టైమ్స్లో మనకి రెస్పాన్స్ రాలేదంటే యూ కెన్ కన్సిడర్డ్ యాజ్ దిస్ ఫైర్ వాల్ యాజ్ అండ్ డెడ్, అండ్ దిస్ IPsec tunnel will be broken, or it will tear down the IPsec tunnel. Okay, this is what the dead period detection in the IPsec tunnel. You can configure the, if you want you can configure as you like. Okay, మనకు నచ్చినంత కాన్ఫిగర్ చేసుకోవద్దు, బట్ బై డిఫాల్ట్ the interval will be 5 times, and 5 interval, and retry will be 5 times. Okay, this is about phase 1 tunnel, and these are the things that we need to configure. Okay, and we are done with the phase 1, and we need to configure a phase 2 tunnel. For that we have an option IPsec tunnel here. So here we need to configure, in the general settings we have a name. I given a name as an IPsec phase 2. Okay, and for this we need to create a tunnel interface first. So here we are in the interface, in the interfaces we have a tunnel. Okay, tunnel interface, we can configure an one tunnel interface here. If we add this, you can give an it will give an pop-up here. This is a tunnel, and if you want tunnel we can configure 1 to 4 bull line. We have an option here. See here, you can configure 1 to 4 bull line, 9999 tunnels we can create here on this single firewall. Okay, by default I am configuring a tunnel 1, and I am allowing ping on this, and for this I am making as an, I created different security zone. Okay, different security zone big, and I configured as an VPN and kept it as an different security zone. This is for the phase 2 tunnel. Okay, and on the same way I am also configuring on the this side as well. Okay, phase 2 tunnel, and I haven't shown you the phase 2 parameters, right? So phase 2 parameter also same, we need to configure phase 2 parameters on this side as well. The same, whatever the parameters we have configured on the this side, need to configure same on the other side as well. Okay, and this is also the same, the phase 1. Okay, this is a phase 1, and IKV1 only mode that we have configured on the firewall 2, and the interface, whatever the interface we have connected to the peer, this is an interface that we have connected. Local IP address will be 10.10. Okay, this is a local IP address, we have 10.10, and the peer IP address is, we are using a static IP, and that is an 10.10.10.20, and the same authentication, we are using a pre-shared key, as we are seeing that pre-shared key here. Okay, and we need to configure a pre-shared key, and make the, after that confirm the pre-shared key. Okay, and this is the phase 1, and if we go with the phase 2, the same thing we need to do. This is a phase 2, we can configure, I have already configured an tunnel 1 in this firewall as well, and given a name as an phase 2. And address type, is an auto key or manual key or global protect satellite. uh, this every We have an lifetime for every phase, right? After phase 2 lifetime is completed, it will generate an it will create, and it will do a rekeying process. Okay, it will automatically will generate an key, but if you are configuring manual, you need to generate all these automatic keys. Okay, by default we are going with an automatic key, so that the firewall itself generate an key for rekeying purpose. Okay, and global protect satellite is an another different topic, where this global protect satellite will be configured in your network, and will get the keys from the global protect satellite, but by default we are using the auto key only, because we don't want to stress, and we don't want to use these two types. Okay, because the firewall automatically generating an auto key, right? So we don't want to stress ourselves to create all this, and we are going with an firewall generating key. Okay, and this is an address type as an IPv4. We are if you want to configure IPsec interfaces, we can configure IP address on the tunnel interfaces as well. Okay, but for now I am not configuring any IP addresses on the tunnels. Okay, and in this tunnel we need to call the phase 1 parameters that we have configured, phase 1 tunnel, and this is IPsec gateway is a phase 1 tunnel, and IPsec crypto profile is an phase 2 parameters that configured on the in the phase 2. Okay, and we have an proxy IDs. So these proxy IDs, when will use proxy IDs means, yesterday we have discussed about route based VPNs and policy based VPNs, right? So if you are using both vendors as an Palo, okay, if you are using these both vendors are Palo, right? We are using both firewalls, Palo firewalls. So these both are route based VPNs. Okay, Palo is an route based VPN, so we no need to configure any proxy IDs here. Sorry, we no need to configure any proxy IDs, because we have already had an routing table. It will choose that routing table to send the user data. But when we are using different vendors, like this side, if you this side you are using Palo, and this side if you are using FortiGate firewall, or if you are using ASA firewall, or if you are using checkpoint firewall, then we need to configure an proxy IDs. Okay, what proxy IDs will have? Proxy IDs will have that local peer IP address and remote peer IP address. Okay, we have configured this IP address. If you see here, we have this is one PC and this is another PC that is connected on the other side. What are the proxy IDs means? This is if you configure proxy ID on this, the local IP address will be this PC IP. Okay, let us take 1.1.1.1 and let us consider this as an 2.2.2.2. Okay, so if you are configuring proxy IDs on this, local IP will be 1.1.1.1 and remote will be 2.2.2.2. Okay, if you are configuring proxy IDs on these firewalls, if you are using Palo and FortiGate, we need to configure proxy IDs on both the firewalls. Okay, I am just mentioning on one firewall we need to give a local IP address as 1.1 and remote address as 2.2. On this firewall, the local address will be 2.2.2.2 and remote address will be 1.1.1. Okay, just make a note of that. We need to give a proxy ID name. Okay, you can just mention as a proxy and local will be 1.1.1.1 and remote will be 2.2.2.2 and we have an protocols like TCP, UDP or any or number. By default we are going with an any and you can just configure. Okay, this is for the different vendors. So here in this case we are not using different vendors, we are going with the same vendor, right, Palo. So we don't need an proxy IDs. Okay, this is all about the configuration wise. Okay, these are the things that we need to configure on the IPsec. And if you see here, after configuring all things, you can see like this. Okay, this is the phase and this is the status of the tunnel phase 2. If you see the tunnel info, this is the phase 2 info, and if you see here IK info, this is a phase 1 info. Okay, and you are seeing the dots, radio buttons, right? It is showing as in red and it is showing as in red because the tunnels are not up. Okay, and these showing will be as in red on both the firewalls. Here also you can see the in the IPsec tunnels you can see the yeah, and you can see this as in red dots. Okay, and this is how you can configuration wise this is how you can configure. And when these tunnels will come up, right, these tunnels will come up only when the traffic is passing through the tunnel. Okay, for the first time. Okay, for the first time, this if you configuring for the first time and if you are done with the configurations, these tunnels, these IPsec tunnel will be come up only the traffic is flowing through the tunnel. Okay, we need to bring up these tunnels by passing through the tunnel, but I don't have the if you want to pass the traffic we need to ping from 1.1.2 to 1.1 to 2.2. Okay, but we can use in Palo Alto we have some test commands to initiate the traffic. Okay, let us consider this and we have this CLI of the both the firewalls. Okay, can, we can use this CLI to CLI commands to bring up the tunnels and or to initiate some traffic through the tunnel. Okay, you can just make a note of that. For the first time the tunnels will be coming up when there is an interesting traffic flowing through the tunnel. Interesting traffic in the sense this traffic, whatever the subnet that we have configured to allow the traffic to flow through the tunnel, these are the interesting. If you are pinging from 1.1 to 2.2, this will become interesting traffic that will pass through the tunnel, then only the tunnels will come up. Okay, in real time scenarios in the same way, if the firewall is becoming a dead when there is no interesting traffic or not in the such cases, See, if the tunnel will go down when there is no interesting traffic passing through the tunnels. Okay, if there is no interesting traffic going through the tunnel will become dead, and the tunnel will be teared down. Okay, uh, so if you want to if the tunnel is up, and if you are seeing green lights here on the firewalls, what that means is the traffic is flowing through the tunnel. Okay, you can make a remember that, please remember that if the tunnels are up and running, the interesting traffic is flowing through the tunnel. Okay, is there any pending commits or let me do and commit on all this. Okay, then we can go with the initiating the traffic to the tunnels. Okay, do you have any doubts on this configuration wise? లేదు, ఇక్కడ ఐకే క్రిప్టో, ఐకే గేట్వే అనేది ఫేజ్ 1 కింద వస్తాయి. ఐపీసెక్ క్రిప్టో, ఐపీసెక్ టనల్ అనేది ఫేజ్ 2 కిందకి వస్తుంది. ఓకే, వాట్ ఎవర్ ద పారామీటర్స్ వీఆర్ configuring here, see IKE crypto, we can call it as an I call in the IKE gateway. See here, this is a crypto profile that we have called in the IKE gateway. Okay, whatever the parameters we configured in the IPsec crypto, we can call in the IPsec tunnel. This is a phase 2. You see here, you can call here crypto profile. It will take some time to commit. Okay, after that we can initiate some traffic through the tunnels and see if the tunnels will come. Sorry, పీసీ నేను డిప్లాయ్ చేసా కానీ అది కొద్దిగా అప్ అవ్వలేదు. చూస్తున్నాను నేను అదే, ఇవి కూడా నేను ఇందాకే డిప్లాయ్ చేశాను అనమాట. ఈ ల్యాబ్ కోసమే ఈ రెండు డిప్లాయ్ చేశా, అండ్ ఈ పీసీ కూడా డిప్లాయ్ చేశా. చూడాలి అది ఒకసారి. క్లయింట్ అప్లికేషన్ కానీ, లేదంటే ఇటు నుంచి అటు ఏమైనా రీసోర్సెస్ యాక్సెస్ చేయడం కానీ, సంథింగ్ విల్ డూ దట్. ఓకే, ఎంప్లాయీస్ ఇటు అటు ఉంటారు, సమ్ డేటా ట్రాన్స్ఫరింగ్ ఫ్రమ్ హియర్ ఆర్, and if some servers are located here in this location, and some users are sitting here and they want to try to access these servers, so the traffic is flowing. We can మనం ఇక్కడ ఏం చేస్తామంటే routes కాన్ఫిగర్ చేస్తామంట ఈ ఫైర్వాల్లో if the traffic is coming from this IP, it has to flow through the this tunnel అని చెప్పేసి మనం కాన్ఫిగర్ చేస్తాం అనమాట routes. So it will go. నేను రౌట్ అంటే ఐ మీన్ నాకు పీసీ లేవు కదా, నేను రౌట్ కాన్ఫిగర్ చేయలేదు. ఓకే, జస్ట్ ఓన్లీ నేను ఈ ఐపీసెక్ టనల్ని యూస్ చేసుకొని నేను ట్రాఫిక్ ఇనిషియేట్ చేస్తాను అనమాట. అక్కడ ఈ సెగ్మెంట్స్ యాడ్ చేస్తాం, చూపిస్తా ఒక నిమిషం. ఇక్కడ చూసుకున్నట్టయితే మనకి ఇక్కడ డిఫాల్ట్ రౌట్ ఉంది, డిఫాల్ట్ రౌట్లోకి వెళ్ళి స్టాటిక్ రౌట్స్ ఉంది కదా, స్టాటిక్ రౌట్ క్లిక్ చేస్తే యాడ్ ఉంది మనకి. ఇక్కడ ఏది firewall 1 కదా, మనకి నేమ్ వచ్చేసి యూ కెన్ కాల్ ఇట్ యాజ్ అన్ IPsec remote destination will be 2.2.2.2, or you can configure as an network as well 24. Okay, and we can use this an interface as a tunnel interface. Okay, we need to pass this tunnel. If you are reaching this destination, the traffic has to pass through this tunnel. Okay, if you are using the tunnel, we don't need to mention an next hop, because this tunnel is directly connected to the other site, right? So it will pass through the tunnel, and it will exit from this tunnel, and it will enter the other site. Okay, we don't need to use a next hop on this. If you are using tunnels, basically for the tunnels. నెక్స్ట్ స్టాప్ కూడా మనం టన్నల్ ఇంటర్ఫేస్ యూజ్ చేసేటప్పుడు నెక్స్ట్ స్టాప్ ఇవ్వాల్సిన అవసరం ఉండదు, ఎందుకంటే మనకి ఇటు సైడ్ చూసినా మనకు టన్నలే ఉంటుంది. ఓకే, సో ఆ టన్నల్ ఈ టన్నల్ ఇంటర్ఫేస్ నుంచి ఎగ్జిట్ అయ్యి ఈ టన్నల్ ఇంటర్ఫేస్ నుంచి అలో చేస్తుంది. ఓకే, ఎంటర్ అవుతుంది ఫైర్వాల్ 2కి. సో వీ డోంట్ నీడ్ టు గివ్ ఎనీ నెక్స్ట్ స్టాప్, ఇట్ విల్ ఆటోమేటికలీ ఎంటర్ ద ఫైర్వాల్ 2. This is how we can create in routes for the to pass the traffic from one site to another site. We can also do the same thing in the here as well. Virtual router, default, static routes, add. అంటే మనం మెన్షన్ చేయలేదు కదా విచ్ ట్రాఫిక్ హ్యాస్ ఫాస్ట్ పాస్ త్రూ ద టనల్ అని. ఇప్పుడు మనకి సర్టెన్ టైప్ ఆఫ్ ట్రాఫిక్ మాత్రమే టనల్ నుంచి వెళ్ళాలి, మిగతాదంతా వేరే బయట నుంచి వెళ్ళాలని ఉంటుంది అనమాట. ఫర్ సపోజ్ if you want to configure this traffic as to pass through the tunnel, and some traffic like, see, these are the some group of users which they want to use this site. There are some servers resides in this site. Okay, this group of users want to reach this server to access the some resources. So we have an IPsec tunnel between this fire site 1 and site 2. So if you are not configuring the static route, or if you are not having any route, it won't, the firewall don't know how to pass. మనకి ఒక ఇంటర్ఫేసే కాదు కదా కనెక్ట్ అయి ఉంటుంది, మల్టిపుల్ ఇంటర్ఫేస్ కనెక్ట్ అయి ఉంటాయి. సో we are telling the firewall one, if you want to reach, if these specific users want to reach the server, you need to pass the traffic through the tunnel. Okay, for that purpose we are creating a static routes. Yeah, IPsec tunnels, IPsec tunnels, and these VPNs are route based VPNs in the Palo Alto. కానీ మనకి అదే మనం ఇక్కడ స్టాటిక్ రోడ్ కాన్ఫిగర్ చేయనప్పుడు ఈ ట్రాఫిక్ ఒకసారి ఫైర్వాల్కి వచ్చినప్పుడు ఎటు నుంచి పంపించాలని తెలియదు కదా. సో ఎట్ సారీ, డిఫాల్ట్ రౌట్ అయితే అంత ట్రాఫిక్ వెళ్ళిపోతుంది కదా, అంత ట్రాఫిక్ మనకు అవసరం లేదు. టనల్ నుంచి మనకు సెక్యూర్ కావాల్సిన ట్రాఫిక్ మాత్రమే మనం టనల్ నుంచి పాస్ చేస్తాం అనమాట. అంత ట్రాఫిక్ టనల్ నుంచి పాస్ చేస్తే మనకి ఇంకా అవసరం లేదు కదా టనల్. If you want to pass all the if you want to protect all the data that is flowing through the from your site, we can make a use of a default route. If you want the specific data has to be secured way, has to transfer in the secured way, so that we can configure an tunnel between the site to site, and we can configure an static route and use the whatever the destinations that you want, or whatever the destination that you want to know. ఉండదు, that's why we are creating a static route. మనకి దీని గురించి ఎస్, ఎందుకంటే ఇది డైరెక్ట్లీ కనెక్టెడ్ టు ద ఫైర్వాల్. సో వీ హ్యావ్ ఓన్లీ ద రౌట్, వీ హ్యావ్ ఓన్లీ నో ద ఇన్ఫర్మేషన్ అబౌట్ 1.1 ద ఫైర్వాల్కి దేని గురించి తెలుస్తుంది, 1.1 గురించి మాత్రం తెలుస్తుంది, కానీ 2.2 గురించి తెలియదు. సో ఎప్పుడైతే 1.1 2.2కి రీచ్ అవ్వాలని ఫైర్వాల్ 1కి వస్తుందో దానికి తెలియదు ఎక్కడి నుంచి పంపించాలనో రౌట్ లేకుంటే. ఓకే, దెన్ ఐ థింక్ ద కమిట్ ఈజ్ ఆల్సో డన్. లెట్ us చెక్. Commit is completed, and ఇది కొద్దిగా అంటే ఐ మీన్ ప్రాసెస్, this is also completed. We don't have any pending request, right? We can try to initiate some traffic, okay? And here, see here we have configured firewall 2, it is reflected here, firewall 2. If we see here firewall 1, admin, right. Maybe access whatever. Okay, show VPN flow name IPsec phase 2. Yeah, this is the actual command, show VPN flow name IPsec name, and we need to give the name of the IPsec. From here we can see whatever the parameter that we have configured. This is in phase 2, and the local IP is 10.20. Here we are seeing that 10.20, and IPsec sorry, peer IP we can see as an 10.10, and interface is 1.1, and outer interface 1/2. Here we can make it note of that we need to check the encapsulation bytes and decapsulation bytes. Okay, what IPsec will do is, whenever the traffic, see here, whenever the some packets is coming from this firewall 1 to firewall 2, okay, what this firewall 1 will do is, see, for suppose the traffic is initiated on this 1.1, okay, the traffic comes to the firewall, and it will check for the routes, and it has to flow through the tunnel. Okay, before going through the tunnel, what firewall will do is, it will encapsulate the traffic. Okay, because this is an IPsec tunnel where the traffic or user data will be flowed through flow from site 1 to site 2 in a encrypted format. So what it will do is, it will do an encryption. Okay, it will do encryption, and it will send this to the firewall 2. What this firewall 2 will do is, it will decrypt this packet. Okay, decrypt this packet, and it will check the destination. Okay, where it has to send. Okay, what it will do is, here it will do an encryption, it will do an on the firewall 2. Once the traffic is reached on the firewall 2, it will do an decryption. Okay, and check the packet. So we need to make sure that encapsulation and decapsulation bytes will be constantly increasing. Okay, if encapsulation bytes are increasing and decapsulation bytes are not, sorry, if encapsulation bytes are increasing and decapsulation bytes are not increasing, what does it means? Encapsulation means it is sending the packet out. Okay, it is sending the packet out. Decapsulation means it is not receiving the packet. Okay, once it is received the packet, it will only the decrypt, so the decryption bytes will increase. Once the packet is decrypted, the decryption bytes will increase here. Okay, once the packet is encrypted and send packet out through the, out to the other side, the encapsulation bytes increases. Okay, make a note of that. మనకి ఎప్పుడైతే ఎన్క్యాప్సులేషన్ బైట్స్ ఇంక్రీజ్ అవుతున్నాయి అంటే ఎన్క్యాప్సులేషన్ మీన్స్ ద ట్రాఫిక్ ఈస్ సెండింగ్ అవుట్. ఓకే, డీక్యాప్సులేషన్ బైట్స్ ఇంక్రీజ్ అవుతున్నాయి అంటే ద ట్రాఫిక్ ఈస్ కమింగ్ ఇన్సైడ్ టు ద ఫైర్ వాల్. ఓకే, we can rule out the which firewall has an issue. ఓకే, ఇప్పుడు మనకి ఎన్క్యాప్సులేషన్ ఇంక్రీజ్ అవుతున్నాయి అంటే ఇక్కడ నుంచి ట్రాఫిక్ వెళ్తుంది అన్నట్టు, అంటే ఫైర్ వాల్ 2 నుంచి ట్రాఫిక్ వెళ్తుంది అన్నట్టు. ఎందుకంటే ఇది ఎన్క్యాప్సులేట్ చేసి ప్యాకెట్ పంపిస్తుంది కదా. సో మనకి ఇక్కడ ఏమవుతుందంటే ఎన్క్యాప్సులేషన్ జరుగుతుంది అండ్ ట్రాఫిక్ ఈజ్ ఫ్లోయింగ్ ఫ్రమ్ ఫైర్ వాల్ 1 టు ఫైర్ వాల్ 2. ఇక్కడ ఏమవుతుంది, ఇక్కడ ఏం చేయాలి, డిక్రిప్ట్ చేయాలి. ఇక్కడ డిక్రిప్ట్ జరగట్లేదు అంటే మనకి ఇక్కడ రావట్లేదని. ఓకే, ఇక్కడ నుంచి రావట్లేదని. ఓకే, సో వీ కెన్ in the troubleshooting part, we can make a note of that. For sure we need to check the encapsulation and decapsulation bytes increase constantly when the traffic is flowing between the site to site using the IPsec tunnel. Okay, this is one thing we need to mainly focus on this. Okay, we can also see here show VPN flow name IPsec phase 2, and you can also see all the information that we have configured in the IPsec phase 2. Okay, and there are no, we are not seeing, because there is no traffic flowing through the tunnel, right? All the traffic will be zero for now. Okay, what we can do is there is a command called test VPN IKESA. This is for phase 1 gateway name. Okay, what is the gateway name that we have configured? IKE phase 1. Okay, we can configure IKE phase way. If you click this is the command. Okay, make a note of that. This is the command test VPN IKESA gateway IKE phase 1. If you click enter, it will initiate a phase 1. Okay, it will initiate a traffic to the phase 1, and we can see on this is a firewall 1. Okay, this is a firewall. I am initiating the traffic from firewall 1, so the firewall 1 will become the initiator, and the firewall 2 will receive the traffic, and the firewall 2 will become the responder. Okay, make a note of that. Whoever initiating the traffic will become an initiator, and whoever receiving the traffic become the responder. Okay, so from the firewall 1 I am initiating the traffic, so it will become the initiator, and we can check the tunnel status on the firewall 1. Okay, we can refresh it once. It has to become red, it has to become green, but we are not seeing anything here as green here. No, let us bring up the phase 2 as well. Test VPN flow, sorry, test VPN IPsec SA tunnel name. Okay, tunnel name, what is the tunnel name? IPsec phase 2. Okay, we have initiated the phase 2 tunnel as well, and phase 2 tunnel IPsec SA for tunnel phase 2 is initiated, and we can also check from the CLI. For now we can go with the GUI. We can refresh it again. We are not seeing anything, so the tunnels are not coming up. If the tunnels are not coming up, first thing we need, this will come under the troubleshooting part. Okay, we are seeing the both tunnels are not coming up. First of all we need to check the system logs. Okay, in the monitor tab we have a system logs. First check the system logs, what's happening with that phase 1 and phase 2. Okay, see here, object we are saying here, negotiation P1 start and negotiation P1 failed. Why it is failing? Phase 1 negotiation is failed as initiator. Main mode, it is 10.10.10 from 10.20 due to timeout. Timeout we have given the same, right? It is showing as an due to timeout. And again, until unless phase 1 comes up, phase 2 won't come up. Okay, we need to check with the phase 1 only. It is mentioning as due to timeout. And after checking the system logs, there is an we can also check from the CLI as well. There is an ikemgr.log where all the IPsec commands will logs will be logged in the ikemgr.log. Okay, we have a command ls mplog ikemgr.log. Okay, here if you enter this, you can make sure that all the IPsec logs will be phase 1 phase 2 logs will be logged in the ikemgr.log. Okay, we need to make sure the timestamp, we need to note the timestamp. Okay, when it is negotiation failed on 15/10/1945. Okay, and we can go here, make a note 15/19, yeah, 1945. It is also saying the same thing. 1945 phase 1 deleted. Where is the phase 1 failed? Yeah, phase 1 failed because due to timeout. Here it is also showing the same thing. Okay, it is also showing phase 1 failed due to the timeout. We need to check what is the timeout. Check the timeout value in the phase 2, sorry, phase 1. What is the timeout value we have configured here? It is an 8 hours. 8 hours. On the other side, IK crypto, it is also 8 hours. 256 512 14 8 hours. 256 512 14 8 hours. Yeah, phase 1 parameters are matching, but we are not getting the phase 1 and phase 2 is not getting up. P6 status is showing okay, but 10:10. Okay, let me ping source 10.10.10.10 host 10.10.10.20. It is on the firewall one, right? Are you able to ping? No, there is no reachability. Okay, so we are not seeing any reachability as it is directly connected as well. We are not seeing any reachability here, and we can also see from this end as well. Maybe this is in different subnets or what. Can try to ping from here as well. Ping source 10.10.10.20. The host will be 10.10.10.10. We don't have reachability, so that's the main thing that it is failing. We need to check. The 100% packet loss. The interfaces are showing up. Adapter 3 VM net 0. What we have here? ఎక్కడ అంటున్నారు? మనకు అప్పుడు మళ్ళీ కాన్ఫిగరేషన్ అంతా చేంజ్ చేయాల్సి వస్తుంది. యాక్చువల్గా నేను అదే ఆలోచిస్తాను. ఓకే, చూద్దాం. వర్చువల్ ఎడిటరా? యాక్చువల్గా విఎం నెట్ 0 అని ఇచ్చింటి నేను. చేంజ్ సెట్టింగ్స్. విఎం నెట్ 8. ఇక్కడ విఎం నెట్ 8 ఇవ్వమంటున్నారా? దట్ ఈస్ ఫైన్. కానీ ఇవి డిఫరెంట్ సబ్నెట్స్కి వెళ్ళిపోతాయి మరి. ఓకే ఓకే, అండర్స్టూడ్. ఇంటర్ఫేస్. ఇక్కడ IPv4 DHCP క్లయింట్ అంటున్నారా? మనం అప్పుడు ఇక్కడ స్టాటిక్ కాకుండా డైనమిక్ పెట్టాలి. గ్రీన్ ఆల్రెడీ ఇంతకుముందు అందుకే కనెక్ట్ చేసే డ్రైన్ వచ్చేసి కమిట్ అవ్వలేదు కదా, కమిట్ పంపిన తర్వాత వస్తుంది. Commit is still pending here. We need to use whatever the VM is giving us. అవునవునులే, ఏదైనా ఐపీ కాన్ఫిగర్ చేసుకోవచ్చు అంటున్నారు. అంటే దీనికి ప్రాసెసింగ్ టైం ఎక్కువలే, ఎందుకంటే ఎక్కువ ఉంటాయి అవి, ఫీచర్స్ బట్టి చెక్స్ ఎక్కువ వస్తాయి కదా. 7.0లో నీకు అన్ని ఎక్కువ ఫీచర్స్ ఉంటావు, కానీ 11 అనేది ఇప్పుడు రీసెంట్ లేటెస్ట్ ఉండేదన్నమాట. కొత్త వెర్షన్ 11.0 అనేది వన్ ఇయర్ అయింది అంతే, అది 11.0 రిలీజ్ అయ్యి. ఫిజికల్ హార్డ్వేర్లో నీకు ర్యామ్ ఎక్కువ ఉంటుంది కదా, ఈ విఎంలో అంటే నీకు లిమిటెడ్గా ఉంటుంది. ఫిజికల్ అయితే ర్యామ్ ఎక్కువ ఉంటుంది కాబట్టి ప్రాసెసింగ్ తొందర అవుతుంది. నార్మల్గా సేమ్ మనకి ఎట్లుంటుంది, మన ఫోన్లో 2GB 3GB ర్యామ్స్ అట్లనే ఉంటాయి. దాంట్లో కూడా ఏమంటే కొద్దిగా హై ఎండ్ ఉంటాయి అనమాట. కమిట్ ఫెయిల్ అయింది. ఎందుకు ఫెయిల్ అయింది? phase 1 లోకల్ ఐపీ అడ్రస్ ఈస్ నాట్ వ్యాలిడ్ రెఫరెన్స్. ఓకే, వీఆర్ యూజింగ్ ఐపీ అడ్రస్ యాజ్ అన్ డిఎస్సిపి, రైట్? సో ఇట్ ఈస్ షోయింగ్ యాజ్ అన్ ఐకే గేట్వే. That's what it is showing as an interface 1/2 local IP. We don't know, we can use dynamic here. ఇక్కడ కూడా మనం యూస్ చేయలేం ప్రస్తుతానికి. You can keep it as a none. Okay, after getting an IP address we can make use of that. And the same way it is also failed. Okay, what is the error? IK gateway phase 1 local IP 20 is not a valid reference because we are using DHCP client, right? And you can use it as a dynamic as well here. Make it as a none. Okay, commit phase 1 లో ఒకటే. ఈ phase 1 కాన్ఫిగర్ చేసిన తర్వాతనే మనకి phase 2లో యూస్ చేసుకుంటాం. ఇవి phase 2లో మనం టనల్ కాన్ఫిగర్ చేస్తాం. వచ్చిందట. ఇంటర్ఫేసెస్ కమిట్ అయిన తర్వాతనే వస్తుంది. కమిట్ ఫెయిల్ అయింది కదా, రాదు. Can check the commit once. It is still 0, and here 0. ఇది కూడా ఫెయిల్ అయిందా? అయితే అది కూడా ఫెయిల్ అవుతుంది. Phase 1, peer gateway ID must be defined when peer address is dynamic. Gateway ID must be defined. What is a gateway ID? What we have configured here? ఇక్కడ peer IP అడ్రస్ ఇచ్చామంటే మళ్ళీ ఇక్కడ స్టాటిక్ ఒక డైనమిక్. gateway ID commit. We take this, you can search in the Google. Peer ID type must be specified. ఇది కాదు. Okay, can use IP for now, and let's see how it goes. Gateway. Phase 1. It is an IP, and we can configure 10.10.10.10. అది కూడా కరెక్టే, చూస్తాను. మనకు ఐపీఎన్ వస్తే మనం కాన్ఫిగర్ చేసుకోవచ్చు. చెయ్యొచ్చు. అంటే అక్కడ మనకి రెడ్గా, ఇప్పుడు మనకి కాన్ఫిగర్ చేసినప్పుడు అక్కడ మనకి ఏం రెడ్గా చూపించకుంటే అవుతుంది. అర్థం కాలేదండి. హ్మ్. చెయ్యొచ్చు. మరి ఆ రెఫరెన్స్ ఎక్కడ ఉండకూడదు మళ్ళీ. ఆ ఇంటర్ఫేస్ రెఫరెన్స్ ఎక్కడైతే ఉంటాయో అక్కడ అంతా చేంజ్ చేసుకుంటూ వెళ్ళాలా. అంటే ఇప్పుడు మనం ఈథర్నెట్ 1/2 అనేది మనం రెఫర్ చేసాం. ఎక్కడ రెఫర్ చేసాం? ఐకే గేట్వేల్ రెఫర్ చేసాం. సంథింగ్ ఈజ్ చేంజింగ్ ఆన్ ఈథర్నెట్ 1/2, it will also affect on the IKE gateway. That's why we got an error, right? ఇది వెళ్తున్నట్టుంది కమిట్. ఇదైతే 98కి వచ్చింది, ఇది 99లో ఉంది. అంటే నేను డైనమిక్ ఇవ్వలేదు కదా, ఐపీ అడ్రస్ ఏదో ఒకటి కాన్ఫిగర్ చేసా, తీసుకుంది అది. ఇప్పుడు మనం ఈ ఇంటర్ఫేస్లో ఏమన్నా ఐపీ వచ్చిందో చూస్ చేద్దాం. 52.135. gateway ID, I think this is a gateway ID in the sense 52.2. ఇది ఇంకా కంప్లీట్ అవ్వలేదు. Interface and 40.132 it is, but gateway is 0.0. మనకి ఎక్కడ రాంగ్ వచ్చింది? ఫస్ట్ ఫైర్వాల్లో రాంగ్ వచ్చింది. సో కరెక్ట్గానే వేసాను. VNet 8 VMnet. ఇది యాక్చువల్ నో యాక్చువల్లీ నెట్వర్క్ అడాప్టర్ 3 అనేది ఈథర్నెట్ 1/2 కదా మనకి. ఓకే, నేను ఇక్కడ ఏం చేంజెస్ చేయలే కదా. ఇప్పుడు వచ్చింది 136 135. Then we can, what we can do is we can try to ping here, show interface all. One slash two we have 52.36 ping source 192.168.52.136 host 192.168.52.135. Yeah, we are able to ping. Then what we need to do is we need to configure IPsec gateway. What we'll do is it won't take. Okay, then we can configure here 192.16. డైనమిక్ ఇస్తే అవుతుంది మనకి ఇక్కడ. లోకల్ ఐడెంటిఫికేషన్, ఓకే, మన లోకల్ ఐడెంటిఫికేషన్ ఇద్దాం. ఇక్కడ ఐపీ వచ్చేసి 192.168.52.136. పీర్ ఐడెంటిఫికేషన్ వచ్చేసి 192.168.52.135. Okay, and you can commit here. The same thing we can do here. IK gateways, IPsec phase 1, dynamic P local identification IP address 192.168.52.135, and P identification 192.168.52.136. And okay, let's check. ఏది ఉండేది ఒకటే కుక్కనే అరుస్తూ ఉంటుంది. అది పడుకునే వరకు అరుస్తూనే ఉంటాను లేచినప్పటి నుంచి. ఓకే ఓకే. ఎందుకు అడుగుతుంది? ఓకే ఓకే. It is successful. It is also successful. You can check the IPsec tunnels. This status is up. Yeah, sorry. This status is also up, right? Okay. Commit complete అయింది. Now we can initiate some traffic. ఏం చేద్దామంటే టెస్ట్. Just a minute. I will come into. ఇప్పుడు మనం ట్రాఫిక్ ఇనిషియేట్ చేద్దాం. టెస్ట్ VPN IKSA and phase 1 name. Okay, what is the phase 1? Gateway IKE phase 1. Okay, yeah, phase 1 is initiated. We can check the phase 1 here. No, can try to bring up the phase 2 as well. Test VPN IPsec SE tunnel IPsec phase 2. Phase 2 is initiated. లేదు, యాక్చువల్గా మనం టెస్ట్ కమాండ్ అంటేనే మనకు ట్రాఫిక్ ఇనిషియేట్ చేస్తున్నట్టు. అది అట్లా కాకుండా పింగ్ కూడా చేయొచ్చు. లేదు యాక్చువల్గా ఈ స్టేటస్ రావాలి అప్ అవ్వాలా యాక్చువల్గా అయితే వీఆర్ నాట్ గెటింగ్ ఇట్. రీచబిలిటీ ఉంది. ఓకే మానిటర్ సిస్టమ్ వాట్ ఈస్ షోయింగ్ నౌ. IPsec config P1 succeed, P2 success. లేదు లేదు నీకు యాక్చువల్గా అయితే ఇక్కడ వచ్చేస్తుంది కాన్ఫిగ్ అని చూపిస్తుంది కానీ మనకి నెగోషియేషన్ అవ్వట్లేదు. both sides dynamic. IPsec tunnel with dynamic IP on both pins. Peer having IPsec address. This isn't static. And this is a dynamic where we are using passive mode enable చేసాం means చేయలేదు నేను. మనం బోత్ సైడ్స్ ఇది వన్ సైడ్ ఈజ్ స్టాటిక్ అండ్ వన్ సైడ్ ఈజ్ డైనమిక్. ఓకే see here we are using static on one side and where is that dynamic on the other side. Okay, this is a dynamic on other side. So when we are using dynamic on the other side we need to enable the passive mode where it will become the responder for everything. Okay, okay, let us do that as well. What we have done, this is a phase one. We can consider as an we can enable the passive mode here on this one only. Okay, and I will do a commit. వన్ సైడ్ స్టాటిక్ వన్ సైడ్ డైనమిక్ అయితే అలా చేస్తాము. బోత్ సైడ్స్ డైనమిక్ అయితే ఎలా చేయాలో చూడాలి. ఎందుకు విత్ బోత్ సైడ్ డైనమికే ఇది చెక్ చే IPsec VPN support for both sides as dynamic, supported on Juniper but not on PA. Dynamic in Palo Alto firewall, if you are using dynamic IP, please select as below. You can establish site to site VPN. This could work, but you know, ఒక దాంట్లో మనం డైనమిక్ తీసేయాలి, ఒక దాంట్లో స్టాటిక్ కాన్ఫిగర్ చేయాలి. ఇచ్చేయచ్చు, అట్లయినా ఇచ్చేయచ్చు. until unless that IP address won't change, మనకు IP అడ్రస్ చేంజ్ అవ్వనంత వరకు రీచబిలిటీ ఉంటుంది. 192.168.52.135. this is a peer IP. I will do a commit here as well. నేను ఇది డైనమికే పెట్టా, ఒకసారి డైనమిక్ ఒకసారి స్టాటిక్ పెట్టా, చూద్దాం. Make sure PA can resolve FQDN for peer bidirectional DNS as configured on both sheets. IK gateway config and log for board. Can you resolve FQDN for this is telling about the FQDN. FQDN. Got the confirmation from PA tag that tunnel can't be established if both speeds is dynamic. One hand has to be static, but it's supported as Juniper. Hence, I will raise a feature request for this. ఎప్పుడు 2016లో I guess I never had need for more. Yeah. This is one good thing. So we have configured. The phase one local IP none dynamic. Okay. Here phase one IP 192.168.52.135. Okay. ఇక్కడ వన్ సైడ్ స్టాటిక్ వన్ సైడ్ డైనమిక్ కాన్ఫిగర్ చేసాం బట్ అది కూడా వర్క్ అవుతో లేదో చూద్దాం. ఇది ఫైర్ వాల్ 2 మనం స్టాటిక్ అనుకున్నాం. ఫైర్ వాల్ 1 అనేది డైనమిక్. సో on the firewall 2 we have enabled the passive mode because it will become always be a responder. So we need to initiate the traffic on the firewall 1. Let's do after the commit. నేను 4 GB చేశాను. అండర్ 8 GB. Okay, let us test now. This ping is still going on. Phase 1 phase 2 we have initiated the traffic. Phase 1 and phase 2 tunnel. Yeah, phase 1 is up. Phase 1 up అయింది కానీ phase 2 up అవ్వలే. See here we can see it is enrolled as an initiator. It is using the aggregate mode by we mention it as an auto, right? So it took the aggregate aggressive, sorry. IK is also up, but IPsec is down. This is called as a responder. IK passive mode. What's happening here? You can go on this firewall, check the system logs of monitor tab. We need to check why IPsec phase 2 is down. IPsec phase 2 negotiation start. Negotiation failed due to negotiation timeout. Negotiator failed as in quick mode due to negotiation timeout. Proposal chosen. Proposal chosen. Proposal chosen. Phase 2 start. Start అయింది. Where is the fail? No. Network IPsec tunnel. Phase 2 is close. It is showing as dynamic. Okay. Okay. Can check. What again? Less mplog ikmj.log. Phase 2 negotiation started. Phase 2 failed as initiated due to negotiation timeout. Phase 2 failed due to negotiation timeout. IK protocol notification invalid ready information due to negotiation timeout. To resolve proxy ID mismatch. Proxy IDs ఏమైనా కాన్ఫిగర్ చేసామా మనం? కంపెనీస్ అదే చేసి ఉంటాం. లేదు ఇక్కడ లేవు. No proxy IDs. Also check IPsec crypto to ensure the proposal matches on both sides. IPsec crypto. Negotiation failed కదా. 256 14 Yeah, 256. Here we are using 512. అర్థమైందా? 256 256 చూస్ చేసాం. 256 512 ఇది తప్పు. So we can delete this and we can configure 256. అది తప్పు, నెగోషియేషన్ ఫెయిల్ అయింది. So we can commit now. This is how we can troubleshoot. Okay, in the monitor log we can clearly saw that negotiation failed. Where is that failed? Due to negotiation timeout. So we need to check mainly in the phase 2. We have in the Palo Alto mainly we can configure proxy IDs and parameters. Okay, so we need to check whether if you have configured proxy IDs. If we are configuring proxy IDs, we make sure that need to configure correct proxy IDs. Okay, it should be replica of, if you are configuring proxy IDs on this firewall one, it should be replica of on the firewall 2 the replica of the firewall 1. Okay, replica in the sense if you are configuring 1.1.1 and remote is 2.2, on the firewall 2 it should be reverse, like 2.2.2 will be an local and 1.1 will be an remote on the other side. Okay, I think ఈ సెషన్ 2 hours అయింది అనుకుంటా. Yeah, can complete here. Let us check the status of the tunnel 2. Phase 1 is up, but phase 1 is up, but phase 2 is down. Yeah, the commit is completed. We can check the phase 2. We can initiate the phase 2 traffic. Phase 2 traffic is initiated, and we can yes, the phase 1 is also, phase 2 is also up. Okay, if you see the tunnel info, we can see the encap decap, because the traffic is not flowing on the firewall, right? So in the tunnels we cannot see encapsulation decapsulation packets. If we configure the topology like this, and if you're trying to ping from 1/1 to 2/2, you can get an encapsulation decapsulation bytes here. Okay, and also we can also for troubleshooting purpose, mainly we need to check the system logs first. On the monitor we have a system logs, and if you have seen here previously, the phase 1 negotiation failed and phase 2 negotiation failed, and we have brought that first. We need to check the reachability first. We need to have the reachability between these two interfaces, between these two sets reachability. And again we need to, if there reachability is there, check the system logs for the error. Okay, for the different errors we can get an different description, and as of now we are getting and we have configured and parameters as and wrong. So the phase 1 came up and phase 2 didn't came up, so there will be a mismatch of the parameters, and we confirm with the error, the due to the negotiation timeout error. Okay, the negotiation timeout error will come when there is proxy IDs mismatch, or when there is negotiation mismatch happen. Okay, so you need to use a ikemgr.log for this IPsec, and for troubleshooting purpose. Okay, this is how about IPsec phase 1 and phase 2 configuration, and bringing up the tunnels. Okay, you can also, let's check on the other side as well. Yeah, these both tunnels are up. Okay, once the tunnels are up, the phase 1 and phase 2 are ready to pass the user data traffic securely through the IPsec tunnel. Okay, this is all about IPsec phase 1 and phase 2 and configuration. Okay, and there is one topic left in this IPsec, which is a NAT transversal. I have planned for today, but it's been 2 hours. This class is extended, so we'll discuss more about that tomorrow. Okay. You can see that NAT transversal in the IK gateway. Here we have an option NAT transversal. Okay. We can discuss more about that NAT transversal, and we can enable tomorrow the NAT transversal. Okay. Any doubts, or do you have anything to discuss? Yeah. Okay then. We can connect tomorrow, and we can discuss about NAT. Okay, tomorrow. నవీన్, క్లౌడ్ ల్యాబ్ ప్రస్తుతానికి అయితే డౌన్లోనే ఉంది. నీకు ఈ యాక్చువల్గా రమేష్ అయితే, ఒక నిమిషం, I will stop the share.